The faint clicking of glasses and the quiet hum of the refrigerator filled the kitchen as you prepared Jungkook's favorite orange juice. You squeezed the fresh fruit slowly, your hands steady as the juice dripped into the pitcher. You had been working for Jungkook, the Mafia boss, for over 3 years now, taking care of the mansion and attending to his personal needs. Jungkook wasn't an easy man to work for. He was reserved, distant, and carried an air of authority that made it hard for anyone to get close to him. Despite this, he would never raise his voice at you or mistreated you in any way. In fact, he mostly ignored you. As you finished pouring the juice into a glass, you wiped your hands on your apron and took a deep breath. Working for someone as intimidating as Jungkook had its challenges, but over time you had grown used to his silent, commanding presence. You placed the glass carefully on a silver tray and made your way to his office. The mansion was quiet as usual, the large hallways echoing the sound of your footsteps. When you reached his office door, you raised your hand to knock but stopped when you heard his voice. I said no. Jungkook's sharp tone made you freeze. His voice was louder than usual, filled with frustration. You hesitated, unsure if you should wait or come back later. But curiosity got the better of you, and you stood still, listening to the heated conversation on the other side of the door. I don't care what you say, I'm not getting married, he snapped. His words were firm, but there was a hint of desperation in his voice. Your draw fraud married? You hadn't heard anything about Jungkook being involved with someone. The conversation continued, his tone growing colder. I already told you I have a girlfriend. Your eyes widened. A girlfriend? That didn't make sense. Jungkook had never brought anyone to the mansion, let alone mentioned a relationship. There was a long pause, and when he spoke again, his voice was quieter but still firm. Fine, if that's what it takes, I'll bring her to meet you. The weight of his words hung in the air, and you felt your heat rise. Before you could process what you had just heard, you realized you were still standing outside his door, with the tray in hand. Shaking off your thoughts, you raised your hand and knocked softly. Come in, Jungkook's deep voice called out. He pushed the door open carefully, stepping inside with the tray. Jungkook was seated behind his large wooden desk. Stacks of papers scattered across its surface. His black hair was slightly messy. I brought your juice, you said softly, placing the tray on the edge of the desk. He gave you a brief nod, his eyes flickering to the glass before returning to the documents in front of him. You turned to leave, not wanting to disturb him further, but his voice stopped you. Wait. You paused, glancing over your shoulder. His intense gaze was fixed on you now, and it made you feel oddly self-conscious. He leaned back in his chair, studying you for a moment. The silence stretched between you, making the room feel heavy. Marry me, you froze, unsure if you had heard him correctly. What? You stammered, turning fully to face him. Jungkook sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose as if annoying with himself. No, for real. I mean, pretend to marry me, he said quickly, his tone calmer now. You blinked, still confused. Pretend? Yes, he said firmly. My parents are forcing me to get married, and I told them already I have a girlfriend. Now they want me to meet her. I need you to play the part. You stared at him, your mind racing. Why me? You asked hesitantly. Because you're the only one I can trust with this, he said simply, as if that explained everything. His words didn't make the situation any less absurd, but I don't know how to do something like that, you said, your voice barely above whisper. You don't have to do much, he said, leaning forward slightly. Just pretend to be my fiancé for a while. My parents will back off and then we'll end it. You hesitated, feeling overwhelmed by the sudden proposal. The idea of pretending to be his fiancé felt impossible, yet there was something about the way he looked at you, so desperate, so vulnerable, that made you reconsider. Please, he said quietly, his tone softer now. It was strange to see someone as powerful as Jungkook leading with you, and it made your heart ache a little. After a long pause, you sighed. Alright, you said finally, I'll do it. The next morning, you found a beautifully wrapped box waiting for you on the dining table. Inside was a stunning emerald green dress, its fabric soft and luxurious. A small note was attached. You stared at the dress in disbelief. It was far too elegant for someone like you, but it seemed Jungkook had already decided what you would wear for the meeting. When the evening arrived, you carefully put on the dress, letting the silky fabric hug your figure. You kept your makeup simple, just enough to enhance your features, and pinned your hair neatly. You felt nervous as you stepped out of the room, but your breath hissed when you saw Jungkook waiting near the front door. He looked effortlessly handsome in a tailored black suit, his dark hair slicked back. His eyes swept over you, and for a moment he seemed to forget how to speak. Look, he cleared his throat, his voice quieter than usual. You look beautiful, thank you said softly, feeling your cheeks warm under his gaze. The car ride to his parents' house was quiet but not uncomfortable. Jungkook's hand gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles turning white. You seemed tense, you said, glancing at him. I'm fine, he replied curtly through the edge, and his voice suggested otherwise. After a moment, he spoke again, his tone softer this time. But you don't have to worry about tonight. Just follow my lead. You nodded, though your nerves refused to settle. I'll try my best. The mansion was even larger than Jungkook's, with towering gates and a long driveway lined with perfectly trimmed hedges. His mother greeted you at the door, her sharp eyes scanning you from head to toe. So she's fine, she said, her tone polite but clearly skeptical. Yes, Jungkook said firmly, placing a hand on your back. The gesture startled you, but it also gave you a sense of reassurance, not bad. It made your boss fall in love with you. You smiled hesitantly and quickly looked at Jungkook, who gestured you to be at ease. Dinner was wrapping up, and Jungkook's parents were chatting animatedly about family matters when his mother suddenly turned toward you, her smile sharp and calculating. So when she began folding her hands neatly in her lap, when can we expect the two of you to make things official? You blinked, caught off guard by her question. Official? You stammered, glancing at Jungkook for help. Jungkook, who had been sitting calmly beside you, straightened slightly. We haven't decided yet, he replied, his voice steady. Nonsense, his mother said with a wave of her hand. You have been together long enough now. It's only proper to set a date now. Her eyes widened as he stared at Jungkook silently, begging him to do something. But instead of refuting his mother, he simply leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. His father chimed in next, his deep voice firm. How about 3 weeks from now? That should give you both enough time to prepare. Your heart sank. 3 weeks? What was happening? You had agreed to pretend to be his fiancée, not actually marry him. You looked at Jungkook again, your confusion clear, but before you could say anything, he casually reached under the table and gave your hand a reassuring squeeze. Then, with a barely noticeable shake of his head, he silently told you to not react. 3 weeks sounds perfect, Jungkook said smoothly, a small smile on his lips. You were too stunned to say anything, so you simply nodded, pretending to agree. Inside, however, your mind was racing. Later, the car was silent as Jungkook drove you back to his mansion. The city lights flashed outside the window, but you barely noticed them, too lost in your thoughts. When you couldn't hold it any longer, you turned to him, your voice sharp. What was that? Jungkook glanced at you briefly before returning eyes to the road. What do you mean? You know exactly what I mean, you said, crossing your arms. Your parents just set a wedding date. 3 weeks. You told me I only had to pretend to be your fiancé, not actually marry you. He sighed, his grip on the steering wheel tightening. It's not real, he said simply. Not real, you repeated, your voice rising. It sounded pretty real to me, Jungkook. Your parents are expecting a wedding. They won't, he replied calmly, his tone irritatingly steady. We'll figure something out before then. I just need them off my back for now. You stared at him completely baffled. Do you even hear yourself? This is insane. How am I supposed to go along with this? Jungkook finally pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to face you. His dark eyes were serious, his voice softer now. I know this isn't what you signed up for, he said, but I promise you won't have to do anything. You don't want to, the wedding won't happen. I'll make sure of it. You wanted to believe him, but the whole situation was spiraling out of control so quickly that you didn't know what to think anymore. Just trust me, Wine, he said, his gaze unwearing. Can you do that? After a long pause, you sighed, leaning back in your seat. Fine, you muttered, but you better figure this out, Jungkook. He smiled faintly, his usual confidence returning. I will, don't worry. Despite Jungkook's reassurances, his parents wasted no time in starting the wedding preparations. Within days, they had hired a wedding planner, sent out invitations, and even chosen a venue. He felt more trapped than ever, but Jungkook remained calm, as if the whole thing was just a minor inconvenience. One evening, he knocked on your bedroom door and handed you a white garment bag. What is this? You asked, staring at it suspiciously. Your wedding dress, he said casually, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. You looked at him surprised. Are you serious? It's just for show, he said, his tone matter of fact. We'll take some pictures, go through the motions, and then it's over. You don't even have to pick the dress. I already did it for you. Great, you muttered, rolling your eyes. So thoughtful of you. The morning of the wedding was a whirlwind of activity. Makeup artists, hairstylists, and photographers filled the mansion, all focused on making you look perfect. You felt like a doll being dressed up for display, your every move controlled by someone else. When you finally looked at yourself in the mirror, you barely recognized the person staring back. The white gown fit you perfectly, its delicate lace and flowing skirt giving you an almost ethereal appearance. Jungkook was waiting for you downstairs, looking devastatingly handsome in a black tuxedo. When he saw you, his eyes widened slightly, and for a moment he looked like he wanted to say something. You look nice, he said awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. You raised an eyebrow. Nice? He smirked, his confidence returning. Okay, you look beautiful. Happy? You rolled your eyes but couldn't help the small smile that crept onto your face. The ceremony itself was simple and quick. Jungkook's parents were all smiles, clearly pleased with how everything had turned out. We went through the motions, exchanging vows, slipping on rings, and even sharing a quick, awkward kiss, trying not to think about how surreal it all felt. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. You laid on the side of the enormous bed, careful to keep a respectful distance, your body stiff as a board. Jungkook was lying on the other side, scrolling through his phone. Even though there was plenty of space between you, his presence felt overwhelming, making it impossible for you to relax. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, you heard him set his phone down on the nightstand. You can breathe, you know, he muttered, his tone slightly amused. I'm breathing, sir. He replied softly, still staring up at the ceiling. There was a pause, and then he let out a low chuckle. When we are married now, at least pretend to be comfortable. You don't have to act like I'm going to bite you or something. He swallowed, feeling a little embarrassed. It's not that, sir, he said quietly. It's just everything feels so sudden. I'm still trying to process it all. He turned slightly to face you, resting his head on his head, as he regarded you thoughtfully. You have been calling me sir for months now, he said. Doesn't it yet? You blinked, finally turning your head to look at him. I didn't mean to offend you, sir, he said quickly, sitting up slightly. It's just I thought it was the proper thing to do. You are my boss after all. Jungkook sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. When calling me sir when we are pretending to be a couple is going to look weird. Can you just not do that? At least when it's just us. You hesitated, chewing on your bottom lip. What should I call you then, Jungkook? He said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Jungkook, you repeated softly, the name feeling foreign on your tongue. He smirked at your hesitant tone. That's my name, unless you want to call me something else. Your cheeks flushed. No, no, Jungkook is fine, girl, he said, leaning back against the pillows with a satisfied smile. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow we have got to figure out how to make this whole charade even more convincing. Yes, you stopped yourself, catching his warning look. Yes, Jungkook, you corrected the name, still feeling strange to you. Say aloud. He chuckled softly, closing his eyes better. He turned back to face the ceiling, a small smile tugging at your lips. Despite yourself, maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. The soft glow of morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a warm hue over the room. You woke up first, carefully sitting up in the massive bed, making sure not to disturb Jungkook. His face looked peaceful, his sharp features softened in sleep. You couldn't help but admire how different he looked, so far removed from the intimidating mafia boss you worked for. Without the tension in his jaw or the calculating glint in his eyes, he almost seemed normal. Staring isn't polite, you know. His deep voice startled you, pulling you out of your thoughts. Your eyes widened. I wasn't staring, you stammered, quickly looking away. He smirked, stretching lazily before propping himself upon elbow. Sure you weren't. He felt your cheeks heat up and quickly climbed out of bed. I'll go make breakfast, you muttered, eager to escape the teasing glint in his eyes. You were in the kitchen, carefully preparing Jungkook's usual breakfast. A simple omelette and toast. It felt odd to be cooking for him in this new context, as his wife, even if it was just for show. As you plated the food, you heard footsteps approaching. Turning around, you found Jungkook leaning against the doorframe, watching you with an unreadable expression. You always make my breakfast so perfectly, he said, his voice softer than usual. It's my job, you replied, focusing on the food to avoid his gaze. He walked over, standing closer than you expected. Still, it's nice. No one has ever really taken care of me like this before, he admitted quietly. The honesty in his voice caught you off guard. You looked up at him, surprised. Really? He shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. Really? Most people just want something from me, but you just do it without expecting anything in return. You didn't know how to respond to that, so you simply handed him his plate. Well, someone has to make sure you don't starve. His chuckle was warm, and for the first time, the tension between you seemed to ease. Later that evening, you wandered through the hallway, humming softly to yourself, but when you passed Jungkook's office, you catch a snippet of his conversation and your heart stops. I want this marriage to happen for real. Your fingers curl around the doorframe as you listen, pulse quickening. This marriage is real. Your mind reels the marriage. This arrangement was supposed to be fake, nothing more than a business deal. But now Jungkook's words make everything uncertain. The call ends, and before you can think, you stepped inside, your voice barely a whisper. Jungkook, what did you mean by that? He turns to face you, his expression unreadable. What do you think I meant? Your throat tightens. This is just a contract marriage, isn't it? Jungkook looks at you, his gaze intense. He stands, walking toward you, a piece of paper in his hand. Isn't it real that you want to be my wife? His words are soft, but they strike deep. You freeze, unable to find your voice. He steps closer, eyes searching yours. How long were you going to hide it that you have loved me for years? You shook your head, stumbling back. I don't know what you're talking about, but Jungkook doesn't back down. He pulls something from his desk and holds it out in front of you. Your world tilts when you see half-burnt letters in his hand, your letters. Tears instantly well up in your eyes as you try to speak, but your voice cracks. You, how did you? I found them, he says, his voice soft but firm. The maid found them first, and then I checked the CCTV footage. As Jungkook's voice continues, the scene shifts to the maid's discovery of the letters. The camera zooms in one of Mrs. Lee's as she dusts the storeroom, her hands moving instinctively as she notices something strange under the bed. A few scraps of charred paper. She bends down to retrieve them, her eyes widened as she reads the faint words, still legible. Jungkook, you're the only one I have ever loved. Her breath hitches and she hesitates before walking toward Jungkook, steady, carrying the pieces of love letters carefully. Back in the present, Jungkook speaks again, his voice steady but full of curiosity. You tried to burn them, but you couldn't. Why? You look away, too ashamed to meet his gaze, your heart racing. I had no choice. Your sister, she saw the letters before I could burn them. She wanted me to stay away from you, Jungkook. She said, your voice falters, that someone like me isn't meant for someone like you. As the words hung in the air, Jungkook's face darkens. My sister said that. You nod, trying to swallow the lump in your throat. She wasn't wrong, was she? I'm just a middle-class girl, and you're from a world I could never belong to. Jungkook's expression shifts, his hands gently cupping your face, urging you to meet his eyes. Do you really believe that? You tremble, unable to hold back the tears. I had to believe it. You whisper, your voice cracking. His thumb brushes away the tears on your cheeks, then stop walking away. You blink, confused. What? I don't care about status, he murmurs, his voice steady. If I did, I wouldn't have gone through all of this just to marry you. Your eyes widen in shock. You planned this? Jungkook smirks softly. Thank you for watching. If you like the story, please don't forget to subscribe.